Hi everyone, I am Casey Coombs. I'm the Assistant Director of the Create Better Health program here in Utah. And today I'm going to do an introductory training to our reporting system that we use throughout the state. This training is intended for our new ambassadors as they come into our program, as well as for older ambassadors that would like a refresher on how to enter their data into PEARS. We're going to be doing a series of trainings. This is the first of several trainings, and today, again, I'm just going to do an overview of the different things we collect in PEARS, as well as how to input a program activity. So as you have been onboarding, you should have received an email from PEARS to your USU email address that gives you a temporary password that would allow you to log into the system. Once you receive that email, you'll click on the email, which will bring you to this website, and you'll enter your USU email address as your login name, and then the temporary password that they sent to you. From there, you will replace that password with a personalized password, and then you should be all set to start entering your data. When you first log into PEARS, this is the dashboard that you will see. This is the screen that you will come to. And here you're just going to see just a quick overview of all of the activities that you yourself have entered, not other people in your county, just what you have entered personally. Another key features for this homepage that you land on, you'll have 3 different options up here on the menu. So you can plan, which is surveys, and you won't be doing anything within this tab. This is a tab that we use here at the state office to enter the surveys that you can add your response data to. So you don't have to add anything there, and I'm actually not even sure if anything would pull up if you did hit the plan tab. Then you have your track tab, which is where what you will hit to enter any type of program activity or program that you've done in the state. So whether it's teaching a class or a series of classes, or you want to enter a success story or an indirect activity or a PSE site activity, you will start those entries by scrolling down in the track menu and selecting the most appropriate option for the data that you have. The final one is the analyze, and you may do this a little bit. You may want to just take a look and see how your personal entries are looking, as well as others in your county. You would be able to see your unit snapshot would be your county. Your EARS data would be the reach in your county, so the number of people you've reached through your program activities, the number of PSC sites, and information like that. So you may be in there a little bit just out of curiosity, but really the menu item that you're going to spend the most time in as ambassadors is the track function here. Over to this side, you've got a few different options. You can search the PEARS reporting system for different things. If you are looking for a specific entry that you did, you can use the search engine to help you identify or locate it. And then obviously there's a question tab, so support, resources, and directory. And the PEARS team, who is out of Kansas State, is actually a great resource for our state to answer questions about the program. If you have specific questions about data entry or anything specific to our program, I would highly recommend reaching out to myself first. And then, you know, if we have questions or comments about the reporting system as a whole, then we together would reach out to the Kansas State team. But there is the option of getting support there as well. There's many different topics and help links. If you have questions about any of it, you can go in here first and see if they can answer your questions. If not, again, just reach out to me, and I'm always happy to help with anything related to PEARS. So as I mentioned, today is the first in a series of trainings, and the most common type of program activity as a new ambassador that you'll probably be doing and be ready to enter quickly is a program activity. So a program activity is a class or a series of classes that you're using one of our approved curriculum to teach to a group of people. Program activities are for both youth and adults, so you would enter both youth program activities and adult program activities in the same manner. So once you have conducted your class, and if it's a class where you're giving surveys, so any of our adult classes have those surveys and are ready to enter it into PEARS, you would come log into PEARS and then go to the track menu and select program activity. If you're looking to review a program activity you've already entered or looking to add additional information to a program activity you've already started, you can go into all of your active program activities. So everything from this year, you would select here and you would click on it to get back into that entry and add and edit it as necessary. Today we're going to walk through the steps of adding a new program activity, however. So if that's what you're hoping to do, you can go over here to this little add button and just click on it. And that will bring you into the program activity module. And anything that you see a red asterisk is required before you can move on to the next page. So what you'll first want to create a program activity name, and this is a name that's going to just help you recognize the program activity for your data entry and for your reporting purposes. So add enough detail so you can recognize it and differentiate it from your other classes. So perhaps you're doing a class at the local Department of Workforce Services, so maybe I'm going to write the Logan DWS Workforce Training class, what I'm going to call this one. So you can name it anything you want. There's really no limits, but just enough so you can identify it and differentiate it from the other program activities you're conducting. The sites, there's many different sites throughout the state that are already entered into the system. The system will roll over sites from previous years, previous ambassadors. So chances are places you're working, unless it's a new site for you and your county, will be within the system. And all you'll do is you'll start entering the location and see if something auto-populates. So like I said, I'm doing this one at the DWS office, which is a popular place throughout the state. So you want to make sure you select the right one for your county and your city. So I'm going to select this one for the DWS here in Logan. The unit is your county. So if you're in Cache County, you would select Cache County. And delivery people. This one is the people who are teaching the class. So this is where you can capture if you're team teaching with someone. So you don't have to put yourself in. It's just implicit that if you are making the PEARS entry that you were one of the delivery people, but here you would add additional people. So perhaps I'm going to add Jocelyn Gibson as a co-delivery person. And this will make it so this entry she can also access this entry in her PEARS as well, so that the team teachers can both enter data or just see what the other person had entered. If you taught a class by yourself, you won't have any additional delivery people to add, and that's fine. You can notice there's not a red star here, a red asterisk, so you don't have to fill something in there. Method used to deliver this program. The default option is face-to-face because that's how most of our program activities are being delivered at this point. You can see the other options are webinar or online, or a mix of online and face-to-face classes. At this point where we don't have online resources, the default option is the one that you will just leave in the box. Volunteers, this is self-explanatory. If you had volunteers assist with your help, you would put in the number of volunteers as well as the total hours they spent with you. And one thing I should mention is program activities if you're doing a series of classes, this is where you would capture the data for that whole series of classes. So if you did a Create Better Health series of 6 classes, you would do one program activity that would include all 6 of those classes within it. So volunteer is one section that maybe you would end up going back in after every class. So maybe weekly you have your classes and adding additional volunteers. You would just add, if week 1 you had 1 volunteer and then the following week you had 2 volunteers, but one of them was the same volunteer who came last week, you would only add 1 more volunteer to be 2 volunteers total because it's 2 individual people that came to volunteer. So this is one of the areas that may increase as your program activity continues throughout the series. And you would just add the number of hours, total number of hours spent volunteering. Sessions, so this is the actual classes within that program activity. So we require for a Create Better Health series that there are at least six classes or at least 6 sessions in a series. So you would add 6 different dates. I'm going to just go ahead and say I started my series yesterday on November 6th. I started at 3 o'clock and They're 60-minute classes. And yesterday I had a class and I had 5 participants in it. Now I'm going to save some time later on, and I'm just going to go through and add the information for the classes that I already have scheduled. Now I don't know the number of participants that are going to come, but I do know that I have 1-hour classes planned for the next 6 weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and just add those in. They all start at 3 and they're all 60 minutes. Okay, this is the last one. My series will end on December 11th. And then each week, as I know how many participants come in, I will come back and add the number of participants. And this is the total number of participants attending your class. So if this next week I have, these 5 participants plus one more, I would put 6 because there were 6 total people in my class. This next column is using interactive media. It's something that we don't use in our classes at this point, so you will not be toggling that to select it. So just leave that off for now. It's a pretty specific tool that is not something we've incorporated into our programming at this point. The comments box, you can use this to track anything that you want to track that would be helpful for you and maybe your co-delivery person to know. If there's anything about the class you think we should know here at the state office, you can go ahead and put it here in this optional comment box. File attachments, you can add different attachments here if you want to. This is the great place if you get pictures and photo release forms from your classes, go ahead and add them here. You do not have to add the surveys that you've collected in the class. As long as you've entered the data, you will just mail those surveys into us. So you don't have to scan them and attach them here. So again, this is another optional field. So if you don't have anything to add here, that is okay. There's really no reason unless at your county level or you personally want to upload your handouts or the other tools you've distributed in this class, you could go ahead and do that. But from our perspective, we don't require anything like that. So once I've filled out all of this data about this session, about the program activity, I will just save and continue. Okay, the next one is SnapEd custom data. And here you're going to choose the intervention name. So this is, for our program, this is the curriculum that we used or the PSC strategy that we used. So for an adult class, which is the one that I'm entering today, I'm going to select Create Better Health. The priority indicators are those behaviors that we're targeting with that intervention. So with Create Better Health, we obviously want to improve healthy eating behaviors among participants. So I'm going to go ahead and select that one. We want to improve food resource management behaviors through things we teach like meal planning, grocery shopping, budgeting. So I'm going to select that one. I know through the course of my series, I'm also going to teach about physical activity. So I'll choose that one as well. Our target audience, remember I said we were teaching this to adults in a workforce readiness class at the Department of Workforce Services. So I'm going to go ahead and just select adults as the target audience. So this is just an auto-populated list that was created by PEARS. So you can choose the most appropriate audience, or you can always choose other, and then you would specify who the audience is. The setting is the type of setting that you're teaching the class. So there's a variety of places that SnapEd programs often work. Again, this list, like target audience, it has several other options. So you could go ahead and select other if none of these categories seem to be a good match for the setting that you taught at. I'm going to go ahead and add, let's see. I'm going to add adult education, job training, temporary assistance for needy families, and veteran services sites. So that is what I think matches the best to my DWS workforce training program that I'm teaching my class in. Primary curriculum, again, I said this is going to be a Create Better Health class. I'm going to select that, and I'm not using any additional curricula for this program activity. Objectives, for all of our direct education, we want to improve overall diet quality, increase food resource management skills. So you can see these really model the indicators closely. So just go through here and pick which objectives you think are going to be taught in your series of classes. We're going to hopefully increase participation in physical activity, and we also want to improve safe food handling and preparation skills. So I'm going to select all of those. And with the objectives and the priority indicators, you can either fill it out for the whole series. So I know I'm going to touch on all of these objectives throughout the course of the series, or you could go in and add them weekly. Maybe the first week we're going to talk about improved diet quality and participation in physical activity. So I'll select those two. And then the second week, when I come back to add my data about that week, I'll add the increased food resource management and the safe food handling and preparation. So it's just up to you if you want to approach this as fill out as much information about the whole series as you can when you're building the program activity, or just go in weekly or however frequently your classes are and build upon your answers from the previous week. Intervention topics. Again, you're just going to move through this list and choose the different intervention topics you're going to cover throughout the course of your series or in that class for the week. So I'm just going to select a few here. Okay, and fruits and vegetables. The next question is, did this activity include a food demonstration? And here in Utah, the way we're interpreting food demonstration is whether you would select yes if you did a full-on food demonstration where you did the demo in front of the class, how to prepare the recipe that you are offering them, or if you prepare the recipe ahead of time and the participants just receive a sample. So in any situation, if people are receiving a sample of food, you would select yes. And then a box will pop up and it'll ask you which recipe that you used. And maybe I did the Popeye smoothie. And again, since this is going to capture all of the information for your whole class, you're going to eventually have 6 recipes in here that you used. We'll do the apple crisp and the Caesar salad. Okay, so once all of that is entered, you'll go ahead and save and continue and move on to the next step. The next step is adding the program activity demographics. So this is just the makeup of the participants of your classes. So we're going to be looking at things like their age, their genders, their race, and their ethnicity, just to make sure we're reaching the populations that we should be reaching here in Utah. So again, where this is going to capture the information for all of your program participants, this is the section that you'll have to come back into after each session or class in your series. So here, total is report the total number of unique participants for this program activity. So remember I had said in the first week, I had 5 participants. So I'm going to go in and put 5. And then after that second week, I went back to the class, those same 5 people that were there, but there was 1 additional person there. So I would just add 1 more person to the total. Because now over the course of those 2 weeks, I have seen 6 different individuals in my classes. The next box is the method used to determine the demographic makeup of participants. So if you're entering all of the data below on age and sex and ethnicity and race based on how people answered their surveys, then you would select actual count. If you're entering this data based on your visual estimate of the group, so if you didn't distribute surveys, if it was too large of a group, or if you were working with youth and we don't have surveys and you just estimated how many males and females and the ages and the ethnicities, you would select estimated count. Obviously, actual count is always the preferred method to determine demographics, just because we know that would be more accurate, how people are self-identifying. But if you can't get an actual count or a survey of the target audience, then an estimated count will suffice. But you do have to select one of these 2 options for all of your program activities. The source of your data, for if you're collecting surveys from your participants and using how they've answered the surveys, you would select survey of the target audience. If you selected visual estimate as your method, then you would be consistent and select visual estimate as your source of data. Commercial market data on audience size is something that you probably would be selecting more for your PSE strategies, not really for your program activities. So age and sex. So here you can see across the top are the sex or the genders of your participants, and then down the side is the age. So the reason these boxes are in red is that they must total your total participants up here on the that you've reported up here in order for you to move on. So if your numbers down here and these boxes don't equal 6, you're not going to be able to move on. And this is just PEARS' way of making sure that you are accurately reporting both of these total numbers and then the demographic makeup. So this was an adult class, so I'm going to say I had 4 females in my class. And notice the boxes are all still in red because this does not match the total of 6, but I also had 2 males in the same age group. Okay, and you can see the boxes now are not red, so I can move on to the next section. Ethnicity. These are all questions that you would gather from our surveys or from the classroom data form for youth classes. So on my surveys, 2 people marked that they were Hispanic and 4 people marked that they were non-Hispanic. Okay, the boxes moved from red to gray. So I've totaled my 6 participants properly. And then race, I had 2 people identify as Asian and 1 person Black or African American, and then 3 identified as white. So once you get all of those numbers to match, you'll be able to progress to the next section. So this is a section, again, like I mentioned, you will be coming back to every week because you don't know the participant makeup of your class until you taught it. So if I went back the following week and I had 2 additional people, I'm going to add them to my total here. So now I have 8, and you'll see all of these boxes went back to red. So you're going to have to go in and add the additional data for those 2 people only. So I had 2 more males come to the class. 1 identified as Hispanic and 1 as non-Hispanic, and both of them identified as white. So now all of my numbers reach my total number of participants for the whole series, which is 8. Moving on to the next section. So if you're doing a youth class where we don't distribute surveys to the youth, you would go to mark as complete. So again, this would be going back here to our demographics. This would be your last step in entering data for a youth class where you did not distribute surveys, or if for any reason you held another class and did not distribute surveys. So you could do one of 2 things. You can either mark it as complete, but I probably wouldn't recommend marking it as complete until the whole series is closed out. So you could just leave it at this point and it would stay as an open activity, and the next week as you went back to your youth class, gathered your participant demographics and came back in, you could add them easily. However, if you can click mark as complete, you can go ahead and do that. And it would close out that program activity for you. If you realize you did that in error, you can go back and right here in this menu on the side, your progress bar, you can mark it as incomplete and go back and edit anything that you need to. Okay, so for adult classes where we do distribute surveys, we're going to enter our demographics, and then we're going to attach our surveys. So you'll hit attach survey, and here you're going to talk about what type of survey you're going to be attaching the data for. So in our Create Better Health series, we do 3 different surveys throughout the course of the series. We do the pre-survey in the 1st or 2nd class, the mid-survey in classes 2 through 5, and then the post-survey in class 6 or the last class of your series. So for today, I'm going to add the pre-survey. So coming down here, remember our pre and post survey is the same exact survey so that we can compare behavior changes over the course of the series. So for the curriculum that I'm teaching, Create Better Health, I'm going to select the pre-post survey. The type is where you indicate whether it's the pre or the post version of the survey. So I'm going to select pre. And the date delivered was the first day of the class, which was November 6th. And I'm not going to change the name of the survey. Aggregate responses is an option that you have. Aggregate means to pull together or compile. So if you had 4 surveys and you wanted to enter all of them at the same time and select, you know, I had 4 females, I had 2, actually I'll go in and just do an example for you. I'm going to start without aggregating the responses. So I'll just hit save here. So you'll see that step attached the survey to this program activity. Now, when I'm ready to enter the response data, so the responses of the participants, I'm going to come over here and click this little, it looks like a little checklist, and it says enter response data. You can see here, these are the exact questions in the exact order that they are on our pre and post survey. So for the first one, you're just going to enter the first 2 questions on the survey are participants' the letter of their first name and last name, so their initials, and their birth month and birth date. So I'm going to say NJ0125. And then I'm just going to go through and click the responses that the participant gave. If your participant left responses blank, you can go ahead and leave them blank as well. We certainly wouldn't want to be guessing people's responses to these questions. So, but we want to be thorough and just make sure we're going through and making sure what we're entering, the questions match what we're clicking on the screen. Like I said, they are in order, so it should be pretty quick to go through and just follow along and click the responses from the paper into the computer. But it is easy to sometimes get off track, so I'd recommend just spot checking every once in a while, making sure you're entering the data correctly. So you just go through, enter your responses. If they entered their email address, just go ahead and put that in. Make sure you do it accurately so that they can actually get contacted for the survey or the newsletter. So if you're entering them one at a time, so if you did not select that aggregate responses, then you would save and add a new response and add the responses from your next survey. And just go through again and do that. Okay, so like I said, there's 3 different surveys that we attach to each program, to each Create Better Health series. There's the pre-survey, the mid-series survey, and the post-survey. So I'm going to go ahead and just for the sake of, actually, I'll go ahead and attach the mid-survey. So I'm going to look for a Create Better Health mid-series. This is a retrospective survey because it's asking them about behaviors they made since the last class. This one would have been offered in week 2, and I'm going to leave the name of the survey the same. I'm going to enter response data for this survey, and again here, we'll do our NJ0125, go through, and enter the responses. Okay. If you had multiple mid-series, you could go ahead and add them here. I'm going to go back and attach surveys just so I can show you how you would build a whole program activity of Create Better Health classes. So I have my pre-survey attached here, so I can add any response data I receive on pre-surveys through this button here. Same thing with mid-series. You'll do mid-series for several classes, so all of those in between classes, so classes 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll hand out the same mid-series survey, and it's a very quick survey asking participants about changes they made since the last class. So if you come back the next week and have another mid-series survey, you can save and add a new response and go ahead and enter your next one. Once you're ready to go on to your post survey, you're going to attach a new survey. Going to select the Create Better Health pre-post survey again. And this time in the type, we're going to select post. And this is how, when we go in to do the data analysis, we know which responses came first in the pre-survey and which ones came as the post-survey, so that we can compare changes over the course of the series. The date delivered, I think I said my last class was December 11th. And I'm going to show you the aggregate responses in this example here. Select my enter response data. Okay. NJ0125. And since I'm aggregating or compiling the entries from multiple surveys, I'm going to go ahead and put them all here. And CBH 0914. Okay, in aggregate, again, I'm going to put all of the responses in at once. So two of these people were male and one was female. So rather than saving and adding a new response data, I'll just enter them all here. Everyone was 18 to 59 years old, one Hispanic, two non-Hispanic. And again, just however they responded. And if they didn't respond, then just leave it blank. And we'll just analyze that part as missing data. And here we had 1, 2, 3. Oh, I only had 2 people respond to the survey. Okay. So you'll just go through and add the responses for all of those. So most of your answers, if the surveys were completely filled out, would equal 3, since I said I had 3 surveys that I was entering here. Okay, we're going to save that. We're going to go back to attached surveys. You always have to go back to attached surveys in order to move on to close out the program activity. So you can see here I have my pre-survey attached, my retrospective mid-series surveys attached, and my post-surveys attached. So the next step is you can either leave this program activity if you know next week you're going to come back in and add more data, or you can go ahead and mark it as complete. And it says here, make sure you've reviewed all program data and that you're ready to mark this program as complete. Marking the program complete means you have finished entering data and are ready for this program activity's information to be included in reports. So again, this lets us at the state office know that this series is complete and you don't intend to have any more surveys attached to it, or more demographics or participant numbers to add to it. Again, marking it complete isn't final. You can go back in and mark as incomplete if you need to, but this is just an indicator to us that we could pull this data and use it in our mid-year reports or quarterly reports or whatever it is that we're working on. So if you are pretty confident that you've added everything and you've gone back through to make sure it's accurate, then you'll go ahead and just mark this as complete. And it will pop up on your program activity list. So I hope that was a helpful introduction on how to get into PEARS and the different things we'll be tracking in PEARS, as well as how to enter a program activity. Again, if you have any questions on entering this type of data, please feel free to reach out to me here at the state office. My email address is casey.coombs@usu.edu. Thank you.